here's the way I'm looking at this. The Panthers are going to the combine. That's like going to the grocery store. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I feel like this is a universal shared experience. It is dangerous going to the combine, going to the grocery store or the combine without a plan. If you just grab a cart and you're just going to aimlessly meander up and down every aisle, you're going to spend more than you want. You're going to see something healthy that you're never going to eat, and you're going to go, you know what, I should start eating these. You're going to put them in the cart. You're going to see something unhealthy and just go, you know what, I deserve it. You're going to throw that in the cart, and then you're going to get home and go, I don't even know what I can make with all of this.
Sounds like me sometimes.
Yeah, well, what can I do with ho-hos, ding-dongs, and kale? Like, this is...
A lot.
Yeah.
I've seen me do it.
How creative can you
go
get?
on.
Yes. But then if you just take like 10 minutes, not even. If you take 5 minutes, grab a pen, grab the Notes app on your phone, grab something to scribble on, open the pantry and open the fridge, and just look and see what you need, scribble down a few notes, and then go to the grocery store. You won't be in there as long. You'll be able to get in, get out, get moving, and you'll get things you'll actually use. So if I'm the Panthers, I don't want to go to the combine with no idea of what I'm looking for. I don't want to just go in there and go, ooh, you know what actually looked really good? You know what? That left tackle looked so good. I think I'm gonna get him. And no, you have two tackles at home. You don't need the tackles. You're gonna show up. You ever done that one where you're like, you know what? Let me get the apples. You get a whole bag of apples. You go home. What's sitting on your counter? Another bag of apples, and you're like, guess what? I'm eating every meal, right? You don't do that. Show up with a plan. So my exercise was I just went through and looked at the contracts for the Panthers, looked at the depth chart, and tried to, on the back of a receipt or on the back of that piece of junk mail I just found, like scribble out the things they need so they can go to the combine with a plan. And you know what ended up happening? I kind of became the kid that is highlighting the textbook and you're supposed to just highlight the important parts, and then you look back at the page and darn near every word is highlighted.
The whole thing's highlighted, yeah.
I was like, all right, let me just write down the things that they really need. And I had darn near every, like, not quarterback, not tackle, not guard. Other than that, pretty much every position was written down. Mm-hmm. So I tried to get a bit more specific and go like, rather than running back, go running back 2. Rather than tight end, go blocking tight end to make my shopping more specific. In no order, okay? This is grocery list style. As I see that we need it, I wrote it down. They need a running back 2. They need a wide receiver 1. Need a blocking tight end. Need a center. Need an edge rusher 1, 2, and 3. Need an off-ball linebacker. Need a free safety. Need a strong safety. And need a cornerback 2. That's what I came up with on the shopping list.
You have both safeties, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely need that. Okay.
I'd free and strong. There's depth there, but I don't feel super comfortable throwing one of those young guys in and saying, like, it's your job no matter what.
I mean, it's really Damani Richardson who's going to be a second-year guy, and that's really it.
And I don't feel comfortable giving Damani Richardson the job. Like, Shaw Smith-Wade, even with the nickel, I was like, do they need a nickel? But I laid off and just said corner 2 and figured the rest of that cornerback room can fill in elsewhere. With J.C. Horn on one side, who we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show, might be getting a deal, maybe, potentially. And whoever they bring in at corner 2, the rest can fill in.
It was Mike Jackson this past season.
That is a hefty shopping list.
Mm-hmm.
That is, to go back to the grocery store analogy, when we were kids, if we had like a serious grocery store, me and my brother and my mom were going grocery shopping, if we had a serious day, she'd start sending us out on missions.
Yep.
Right? I'm going to stay by the cart. You go get the sour cream. You go grab whatever. And then we would go grab stuff and come back and dump it in. That's the Panthers at the combine right now. Dan Morgan is looking at Dave Canales. You go check out this wide receiver. Brant Tillis, you go check out this guy. Looking at all the everybody has to watch something because we need eyes on everything. And even if it's not a player, you end up drafting, right? Think about it like this. Center is on the list. But we also know that Austin Corbett, who played some center for him this past year, they've kicked back. They've kicked into the future essentially a deadline, right? There was some kind of deadline for a roster bonus or something that I don't know.
It's void years on his contract.
That was going to hit, which essentially made it a deadline. Like you have to decide if you want to re-sign me or not by this date. And both sides mutually agreed to kick that into the future, which gives the Panthers more time to decide. Guess what they probably wanted to do? See if there's a center they might like in the 4th or 5th round, right? See if there's somebody that knocks their socks off, and maybe now you think 3rd or whatever it is. You have to, even if you don't plan on drafting them, you have to decide on guys who are on your roster now based on what you learn. So there is a ton of decision making that is going to happen over the next couple of weeks based on that list I just gave you. Off-ball linebacker, Shaq Thompson. That role needs to be filled.
Yeah, you have Trevin Wallace coming off a
Stepping
shoulder injury, but second-year player, and you have Josie Jewell, and that's really about it.
And that all works into the calculus, right? If you're there at the draft, you don't see any off-ball linebackers that you think are going to be available at one of your picks. You then have to decide, do we trust Trevin Wallace and Josie Jewell to not only be effective in play, but be available enough? Are these guys that'll be available injury-wise? Trevin Wallace, speed guy, not the biggest dude in the world.
No.
Right? And you can go all the way through. The other part that I found interesting, running back 2, super deep running back draft.
Mm-hmm.
Super deep. Think you could get one day 3 that can fill a role opposite of Chuba Hubbard.
What type of running back as a running back 2 that kind of complements Chuba Hubbard? What are you thinking? Like a Brashard Smith from SMU, a guy that can really catch the ball?
Speed.
Okay.
And just for, because Dennis, I'm draft nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Brashard Smith clocked 22 miles an hour on the GPS in game. That was the 6th fastest of any position of any player in the entire country, according to Real Analytics. You can follow him on Twitter.
So that's fast.
Flying. Like Genty, 21.6, something like that.
Also very fast.
21.7. Omari and Hampton, 21.6. These are like the fast guys, and almost a full half mile an hour faster is Brashard Smith. So I don't think he'll be there day 3. If he is, slam dunk. Go grab it. But a Bashul Tootin out of Virginia Tech, really any of these fast running backs that might be available on day 3, that's where I'm looking there. But also, if you're using a day 3 pick on a running back, then you're not using one on a center. You're not using one on a blocking tight end. It's all that whole calculus has to be balanced out. That's what this week is about to me. To me, I would like to sit next to Dan Morgan while he watches the 40s, but that's not if you said you can eavesdrop on Dan Morgan's conversations for a half hour a day over the next week, I might do it while the receivers are running their 40s or the linebackers are doing their on-field drills just to hear what Dan Morgan says about them. But really, I want the last half hour, the first half hour after Canales, Morgan, and whoever else is there for the Panthers have put their forks down at dinner, right? Once they've stopped talking about the steak and they start going all right, what do we really think about what happened today? That's what I want to hear. Because how many draft picks do they have? You probably know that off the top of your head.
They have 9.
They have 9 draft picks. Ironically, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 needs. You're not going to be able to fill them all. Let alone, it would be wild if you trade back, got a couple more picks.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to line up perfectly where every need there's a player worthy of that draft pick sitting there waiting for you. There is an extensive grocery list.
And some of those secondary positions that you mentioned, like a number 2 running back, a blocking tight end, they have 2 4th-round picks and 3 5th-round picks. Mm-hmm. And that's where you can find some of those guys, those depth pieces on your team. Maybe it's a depth off-ball linebacker that can play in pass situations, things along those lines. Or, hey, a rotational defensive tackle that might not start but can still play you 20 snaps. You can find those guys in the 4th, 5th round. They have a plethora of that. And by all accounts, the things they need, defensive line, running back, tight end, are the 3 deepest positions this draft.
I was just going to throw that out there also, which is sometimes, right, and I'll go back to the grocery store analogy, you show up and they don't have what you're looking for.
Yeah, shelves empty.
And then you go, all right, let me call my wife who's at work across town. She can stop at the other grocery store, right? You got to find another way to fix it. They might show up at the combine and go, wow, this is a really weak draft for safeties. Well, guess what? That just became one of the priorities in free agency, right? You might show up at the combine and go, gosh, I don't think there's really going to be a corner that I would trust on the field this year available at the picks we want to use on a corner. Cool. Just found out what you're going to be looking for in the trade market, or just found out what you're going to be looking for in free agency. It's all going to come together, but you have to see the big picture. And you have to acknowledge that you're not going to solve every problem. It's about solving as many as you can. The Panthers have a bunch of needs, right? The Bills, trying to think of the Eagles. They might say like, hey, we've got one need and we're going to cash in all our chips to fill it. The Panthers are like, well, we've got 9 chips here. We got 14 holes. We're going to have to get creative. But still, make the grocery list before the combine. See what they're looking at.